Now, coming to individual vaccines. The first one, BCG, Bacillus of Calmette-Guerin. It is a vaccine against Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And tuberculosis is an infection which can cause problem to any organ in the body, mainly lungs, and it can cause death. The vaccine is a live vaccine. It is a relative of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It's Mycobacterium bovis which is injected, and the dosage is 0.1 ml. It's given intradermal on the left arm. It's a single dose which is given at birth. And if that dose is missed, it can be given up to 5 years of age. The efficacy of the vaccine is around 50% against pulmonary tuberculosis and against other severe complicated tuberculosis like tubercular meningitis and miliary TB. It's around 80%. Its side effect is mainly local swelling and ulceration and a scar formation, which starts around 2nd or 3rd week after vaccination, and the scar formation happens by 10 to 12 weeks. It's usually painless and it's scary to see, but the patient or the kid is usually very comfortable even though there's a swelling and pus coming out of it. Next is polio. Polio vaccine is against polio virus, which can cause paralysis of limbs. There are two types of polio virus. One is live vaccine, which is an oral vaccine, and the other one is killed vaccine, which is an injectable vaccine. So oral vaccine is given immediately after birth, and then the doses are repeated at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and then a booster dose is given at 1.5 years. IPV vaccine is injection. It is given either as an intradermal or intramuscular injection, at least 2 doses, ideally 3 doses and a booster dose. It's again has got a protective mechanism more than 80% efficacy against polio virus. The side effects are basically more with oral polio virus, oral polio vaccine, which is vaccine-associated polio paralysis, or another one is vaccine-derived polio virus. Vaccine-associated polio paralysis is a very rare complication which occurs 1 in 2.7 million doses. So when compared to the risk of a polio infection, the risk of VAP or vaccine-associated polio paralysis is very, very, very minimal. And IPV is comparatively safe and it causes hardly pain of the injection site alone. So why not completely change over from OPV to IPV? That will occur soon, and now it's gradually getting supplanted. The OPV is not completely taken off, but the doses have been reduced. For a mass immunization campaign, OPV is always better, and it is more easier administered and it's less costly, and that's why OPV is still going on, because polio is yet to be eradicated in our neighboring countries. The last case reported here in India in 2014 onwards, there has been no cases reported in our country. Why pulse polio immunization? Pulse polio immunization, the objective of pulse polio immunization is to give the vaccine to all the kids less than 5 years in a short period, like within 24 to 48 hours, all kids should get it. It's to increase the herd immunity so that the wild polio virus cannot survive in that particular area. So irrespective of the previous vaccination status, whether you have given polio or not, whether you are going to give polio or not, you are supposed to give polio vaccine on the day of pulse polio immunization. Next is diphtheria vaccine, which is a part of a triple, tetra, penta and hexa vaccination. It's against Corynebacterium diphtheria, which is a bacteria. This particular bacteria affects the throat. It causes breathing difficulty and it may cause death. The vaccine is a toxoid and it is given as intramuscular injection. Being a part of the tetra or penta vaccine, is given at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and a booster is given at 1.5 years, 5 years and 10 years. The efficacy is more than 95%. It can cause local pain and swelling and fever and rarely seizures, and it's mainly due to the pertussis component in that particular vaccine. Next is tetanus vaccine. It's again a part of tetra, penta, hexa. It is against Clostridium tetani bacteria, a bacteria which causes stiffness and spasm of muscles, respiratory paralysis and sometimes death. The vaccine is again toxoid, which is a modified toxin caused by tetanus. It again follows the same schedule, 0.5 ml intramuscular, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and boosters at 1.5 years, 5 years and 10 years. Apart from the usual vaccination doses, to sustain the protection, we need to give tetanus doses every 10 years. And it's not every 6 months, as there's a popular misconception that vaccination against tetanus should be taken every 6 months if there is an injury. Even if there is an injury, if you have been properly vaccinated, you need to take booster doses only in every 10 years. If it's a very contaminated wound, sometimes you may have to take tetanus immunoglobulin, but the TT vaccination is usually required only in every 10 years. The efficacy is 100%, and side effects is, as mentioned earlier, local pain and swelling, fever and rarely seizures, mainly due to pertussis component. Pertussis is again part of the tetra penta hexa vaccine. It's against Bordetella pertussis bacteria. It affects respiratory system, causing severe cough. It's also called as whooping cough. There are two types of vaccine against pertussis. One is whole cell pertussis and the other one is acellular pertussis. The dosage schedule is again similar to the previous one, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and boosters at 1.5 years, 5 years and 10 years. The efficacy is more than 90%. But there is a decreasing trend of efficacy in this vaccine. It's probably because of less host response. And second thing, change in the agent, the genetic modifications in pertussis vaccine. There are studies going on as to how to overcome this complication. Now, the side effect of this particular vaccine is more with whole cell pertussis, and that causes local pain and swelling, fever, and rarely seizures. And acellular pertussis it's a subunit vaccine, has got lesser side effects. And the vaccine which contains acellular pertussis is what is called as painless vaccine. That also causes pain while injection, but the later side effects are much lesser in vaccine which contains acellular pertussis component when compared to whole cell pertussis component. H influenza B is the other component in tetra, penta and hexa vaccine. It is against H influenza B, which is a bacteria which causes meningitis and severe sequelae like deafness and blindness. It's a conjugate vaccine where a component is taken and conjugated with protein to increase the immunogenicity. It follows the same schedule, 0.5 ml intramuscular on the thighs, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and a booster dose at 1.5 years. The efficacy is more than 95%. It may cause local pain and swelling. The next component of the same penta and hexa vaccine is hepatitis B. It is against hepatitis B virus, which can cause permanent damage to the liver. It is a subunit vaccine. A particular part of the virus is taken for vaccination. 0.5 ml intramuscular on thighs, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and then at 1.5 years. But apart from this, the one dose is given at birth for all the babies. The efficacy is more than 90%, and the side effect is again local pain and swelling. Next is rotavirus vaccine. That's a oral vaccine against rotavirus, which is the commonest cause of diarrhea in children. It's a live attenuated vaccine, which means that it's a weakened vaccine, but it is a live virus which is being given. It's an oral vaccine given at 6 weeks, 10 weeks and 14 weeks. It's never given after 6 months of age because of the risk of intussusception in bigger babies. The efficacy is more than 95% against severe diarrhea and around 60% against any diarrhea caused by rotavirus infection. Giving rotavirus vaccine does not prevent your child from getting all types of diarrhea. It protects against particular diarrhea caused by rotavirus alone. The diarrhea by other viruses can be there, but the major cause for diarrhea, dangerous diarrhea, is rotavirus, and that's why there is a vaccine against rotavirus. The next is measles vaccine, which comes as a part of measles rubella vaccine, MR vaccine, or mumps measles rubella, MMR vaccine. It's against measles virus, which can cause an exanthematous fever, the complication being pneumonia and brain infection called encephalitis. It's a live attenuated vaccine, which is a weakened virus. It is given in subcutaneous 0.5 ml. It is given at 9 months, 15 months, and a booster dose at 5 years of age. The efficacy is more than 95%. Rarely it causes fever with rashes at the end of 1 week after vaccination. The next vaccine is rubella vaccine, which is again a part of MR or MMR vaccine. Rubella virus is a virus which causes a similar infection to measles infection, but the difference being this can cause severe congenital defects in a baby when a lady who is pregnant gets this particular infection. It is again a live attenuated vaccine, which is a weakened virus. Follows the same schedule, 9 months, 15 months, and a booster dose at 5 years of age. Then efficacy is more than 95%. Side effects, again, fever with rash, very rarely. The third component, which happens only in mumps, measles, rubella, MMR vaccine, is mumps, which is a virus which causes a swelling of the parotid glands, the salivary glands over here. It can complicate by causing meningitis, deafness, and orchitis in boys. Orchitis can later lead on to sterility as well. It is again a live attenuated vaccine, which is a weakened virus. The dosage schedule is same: 9 months, 15 months, and 5 years. Sometimes the 9 months vaccine is given as measles, rubella alone. So in that case, 15 months MMR, and then at 5 years again MMR will give adequate protection. The efficacy is almost 90%, and rarely vaccine can cause fever. Pneumococcal vaccine is against Streptococcus pneumoniae, which causes meningitis, sepsis, ear infection, and sinusitis. It is a conjugate polysaccharide vaccine, being the shell of the bacteria is taken and it's conjugated with the protein and then injected into the body. The schedule is 6, 10, 14 weeks and a booster dose at 15 months. The efficacy is around 60 to 70%. There are two types of pneumococcal vaccine, mainly PCV10 and PCV13, and depending on the protection given, the cost is also different. And then there is one PCV23, which is given in special situations. The side effect of the vaccine is only local pain and swelling. Pneumococcal vaccine is gradually being incorporated into the national schedule as well. The next is influenza virus vaccine, which is popularly known as flu shot. It is against influenza virus, which causes fever, cough, cold, myalgia, and a little bit of sickness for around a week. It is a live attenuated vaccine, and there is a subunit vaccine as well. It is mainly against the 4 circulating strains in that particular season. So it is different from the other vaccines in the sense influenza vaccine, the flu shot is effective only for a particular year, because by the next year the strains would be different. So every year the vaccine is renovated, incorporating the strains circulating at that particular time. It is one shot every year, except the first time when a kid is given the vaccination, 2 doses are given 1 month apart. The efficacy is around 60%, and it is mainly useful in kids who are having allergy and asthma, and kids who are entering the play school and early preschool ages. The major side effect of the vaccine is fever for 1 or 2 days. Hepatitis A infection is something which affects the liver, and there is a vaccine against it. It is different from hepatitis B vaccine, which was mentioned earlier. Hepatitis A is an infection which comes through food and water, contaminated food and water. It's a killed vaccine. The vaccine is given as intramuscular injection. First dose can be given at 1 year, and after 6 months the second dose can be given. The efficacy is more than 95%. The only problem being local pain and swelling for the vaccine per se. The next infection is typhoid, which is similar to hepatitis A, being the infection is through contaminated food and water. It affects the intestines mainly, and the vaccine is a conjugate polysaccharide vaccine. It is single dose given after 1 year. The efficacy is around 70%, and the side effects is local pain mainly. Next is varicella vaccine. Varicella vaccine is the vaccine against chicken pox. It's a common infection which causes exanthematous fever. The complications being pneumonia and encephalitis. It is a live attenuated vaccine. It's 0.5 ml given subcutaneous. The first dose at 15 months and the booster dose at 5 years of age. The efficacy is more than 80%, and the side effect is local pain and swelling rarely. One of the latest vaccines which is becoming more and more popular is HPV, human papilloma virus vaccine, which is against cervical cancer. So it is mainly targeted at girls above 10 years of age. It is a conjugate polysaccharide vaccine. It is given above 10 years in 3 doses. First dose is considered as 0 months, and the next, depending on the brand, it can be at after 1 month or 2 months, and the third dose at 6 months of age. The efficacy is around 70%, and it has got a particular side effect of syncope post-vaccination. So these kids who are getting vaccination are supposed to stay back, make sure there is no syncope before leaving the hospital. Other vaccines given in special situations are Japanese encephalitis vaccine, meningococcal vaccine, cholera vaccine, rabies vaccine, yellow fever vaccine, and PCV23. Can be discussed in detail in a later stage. Now, certain frequently asked questions regarding vaccination. Is it necessary to start immunization soon after birth? It is very necessary, especially in our country where the disease load is very high. At birth, we give oral polio vaccine, BCG vaccine against tuberculosis, and hepatitis B vaccine. So, If the baby is weighing to 1.8 to 2 kg or above, the baby should be getting vaccination at birth. Should I rub or give hot and cold fomentation at injection site? Nothing is required. You just have to leave the place alone without much disturbance. It will settle by itself. Is it okay to vaccinate a baby with fever? Vaccination is not contraindicated in mild fever, cough and cold. If the baby is very sick, requiring antibiotics and things like that, then I know the vaccination may have to be postponed, but otherwise there is no harm in giving the vaccination. Do I need to restart the course again if a dose is missed? There is no need to restart a course of the vaccination if a dose is missed. You can start from the missed dose. So if for a 3-dose booster dose required vaccine, if 2 doses are given, you can start from the 3rd dose and then give the booster dose and complete the schedule. Can all the missed vaccines be taken at any age? All the vaccines cannot be taken at any age. Rotavirus vaccine can be given only up to 6 months of age. Pneumococcal vaccine can be given only up to 5 years, and then after 60 years there is indication. And there are certain vaccines which can be given only in that particular age. But all the other vaccines can be given at any age. How many vaccines can be taken together? Any number of vaccines can be taken together. But when 2 live virus vaccines are given, it should be given either together or with a gap of 28 days in between. All the other vaccines, there is no such gap mandatory, but the same vaccine to be taken in 2 doses, again there should be a minimum of 28 days. And because of that, if a particular date is given, it's ideal to come on that particular date or after that. If there is a travel which is unavoidable or something like that, if the baby has completed 28 days before the given date, then also the vaccine may be given. But in between 2 doses of the same vaccine, there should be 28 days gap, and in between 2 live virus vaccines, there should be a gap of 28 days. Any number of vaccines can be given together. Why are the schedules different in different countries? Our country, the idea is to give maximum number of vaccines as closely as possible so that there are no missed doses. 2 reasons: there is a chance of dropout and the risk of infection is much higher. So for an ideal protection, there should be at least 28 days, and up to 2 months is fine. So in most of the countries like Europe, Arab nations and America, you may find the same vaccines given at 2 months gap, and in our country it's given at 1 month gap. Both are acceptable. In our country, we are changing it according to our social setup, that's all. Will the vaccine be effective if the baby does not develop fever? Fever is a common side effect of certain vaccines, but it's not mandatory that a fever should be developed in order to develop immunity. There is no harm in developing a fever, but it's not mandatory. What is the difference between painful and painless vaccines? It is a name commonly used for differentiating the vaccines containing whole cell pertussis and acellular pertussis. The vaccine containing whole cell pertussis causes pain, swelling and fever for a couple of days, whereas the vaccine which contains acellular pertussis have got lesser side effects. So the introduction of vaccine is very similar. It's intramuscular and the child will have pain and the child will cry, but the later side effects are lesser in the vaccine which contains acellular pertussis, and that is why it is called as painless vaccine. Are all these vaccines required? Vaccines are very specific. If you take hepatitis A vaccine, it will give protection against hepatitis A and not against hepatitis B or hepatitis E. So if you want protection from a particular disease, you have to get that particular vaccine done. Do vaccines have side effects? It contains aluminum and mercury. Are they not dangerous? Vaccines have definitely got side effects, but when compared to the disease caused by that particular organism, the side effect of the vaccine is very minimal. Vaccines do contain aluminum, mercury, and at some point of stage of certain vaccines, they pass through formaldehyde. But none of these components are harmful enough to cause any danger to humans. What is the relationship between vaccine and autism? There was a study published which showed a relationship between MMR vaccine and autism. But it was a fake study. It was exposed, and that particular doctor lost his license and the study was withdrawn. But still this MMR vaccine and autism is being circulated to scare people and cause confusion. Not only MMR, none of the vaccines have been associated with autism in studies so far. Are vaccines effective? Why infection even after vaccination? As we already mentioned, most of the vaccines have got protection more than 90% and some of them 60 to 70%. So there is always a window of risk of say 10 to 20% of people getting infection even after getting vaccination. But in that group, the infection will be less severe when compared to a person who have not got vaccination. So there is no excuse for not taking vaccine, telling that there are people getting infection even after taking vaccination. Why do we need to vaccinate all when some kids don't get infection even without vaccination? It's like taking a lottery. When the epidemiological triad is in the right sync, when the agent, host and environment comes in the right proportion, the kid, if exposed, is going to get the infection for sure. So as long as these three things don't come in the right time, you are saved. And there are certain infections like polio, where herd immunity works. That is, if the major chunk of the society, the kids are vaccinated, the small percentage of kids who are not vaccinated are also protected because of the other children. So herd immunity works in some kids and some kids escape because of luck. So it is highly risky to wait for an infection without taking a vaccine. My baby is premature. Can I start immunization? Will the baby be able to tolerate immunization? Premature babies are more prone to get infection. So the immunization is very important in those kids especially. So once the child crosses 1.8 to 2 kg, it's very mandatory that those kids are vaccinated as per the schedule, including additional vaccines if possible. Why not natural infection instead of vaccination? If you are 100% sure that you can totally avoid an infection, there is no need of vaccination. But it's practically impossible to do so. Once this infection or this organism enters our body, it can cause asymptomatic infection. You're lucky enough. You may recover from the infection. If you're very lucky, you will have total recovery. If you're not that lucky, you may recover with disabilities. And if you're not at all lucky, it may end up in death. And sometimes the immunity may not be adequate enough to prevent the reinfection. So you're exposed once and then you get the infection. You're exposed again, you get the infection again, depending on your immune status. Mutation of the infective agent can cause problems later on. So keeping all these risks in mind, you want to wait for an infection to occur and get immunity, it's your choice. But when you have a better option of getting vaccinated and getting protected with lesser complication, it's better, it's logical to opt for a proper vaccination when it's available. Hope this video helps you to decrease the confusion regarding vaccination. Thank you.